Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, George Masri, and I interviewed Bradley Watson today from Watson Estates. So, Bradley's a real estate agent, an investor, and a podcast host. He's also a father of two and works with his wife, Sandra. So, on this episode, we talked about, first of all, podcasting. So, that's point number one. How he was able to grow his audience, how he started. So we touch a little bit on that, and just some tips for anyone who's looking to start a podcast, or if you're kind of struggling with your audience, how to basically get more listeners. So number two is market trends. What are we seeing in the market today? And this was recorded in April 2021, so things might be a little bit different at the time that this is being released, but there's still some good points in there about what to do if you are a seller, and also as a buyer, if you're looking for deals, what are some tips and tricks for you there? And then number three, we talked about raising capital. So how Bradley was able to leverage his YouTube channel and his podcast to raise capital that way. And then we touch on little tips as well in terms of building relationships and just staying in touch with people. So some of the ways that he's able to do that. And if you guys enjoy the episode and enjoy the show, I ask you to leave us a review on the Apple Podcast platform, and also like and comment if you're on YouTube. Your support's always appreciated. Make sure to share this with your friends and family. And finally, if you want to connect with me, welloff.ca/. Actually, no, you don't need to do a /. Just welloff.ca, and my contact information's there. And you can also download some reports, welloff.ca/report for that one there. So enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Wealth Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I am here with Bradley Watson today from Watson Estates. He's a real estate agent, an investor, and podcast host. He's a father of two and works with his wife, Sandra. I did a little bit of research, so that's how I found that out. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is your podcast, because I know you've released a lot of episodes. I know you've had a lot of great guests. So we want to talk a little bit about how to grow an audience for that. Also, as an active realtor, I'm curious to hear your take on the market. And finally, we'll touch on raising capital. So the way I like to start off, Bradley, I just want to ask you about your childhood, where you grew up, and maybe one or two things you remember from then.
From my childhood. Okay, let's get going, man. Thanks. I really appreciate being on the show. This is really cool. I love talking to different audiences and hopefully adding some value. But I born in Mississauga. So I was raised in the GTA, born in Mississauga. My parents actually separated. I haven't really mentioned this on a podcast, so you're getting a little bit of info here. When I was 3, so I come from a divided home. I have a very good relationship now with my dad over the years. And now we actually moved up to Brampton, met my now wife, Sandra, who you mentioned at the beginning. Yeah. We met in high school. We're high school sweethearts. We were actually joking the other day. We've known each other more than half of our life now. So we've been together for a long time. We've raised a couple of beautiful kids, 3, we say raised, but they're still 3 and 10-month-old. Yeah. And so growing up, I guess one of the big things for me, never really had, I'm a first generation university graduate. So never really, I wouldn't say I had a silver spoon in my mouth. Fortunate enough to see my mom. I guess one thing to look back on is we kind of were, when I was younger, we lived in apartments, and it was a really big move for my mom to move into a semi-detached in Brampton, because we never owned anything before. And as I grew up, I learned what she does. What she did use her RRSPs, and was able to take advantage of that program to get in as a first-time buyer. So seeing people having given the right advice to my mom in this case, I mean, I never really, my mom was always, she always bragged about having really good credit. And the way she did that was she used her credit card all the time, and she balanced, but she always say, you know what, I got a really cool promo rate for such and such a credit card. And she would jump from card to card and look at that as kind of a badge of honor. And now I look back and I realize I never really had the life lessons, at least in my home or in relationships. I never really got that completely from home. A lot of it has kind of been developed in over the years, whether that's from school or just chatting with smart fellows like yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We have a lot in common, because I grew up in Mississauga and I live in Brampton now too. So it's cool to see. Which part of Mississauga, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Well, I was in Mississauga until I think grade 5. We're born in Credit Valley. We lived, Erin Mills.
Okay,
kind of around
cool.
Erin Mills, south of Erin Mills. And but now we live up in Caledon, so we kind of had jumped. We want to stay close enough to family, but also kind of, this is pre-COVID. We're trying to get away a little bit more space. Yeah. And with our family, so
nice.
We're happy. We're living a happy life. We're in our dream home. We can't complain.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So let's jump into the podcasting part. So yeah, when did you launch your podcast, and can you tell us a little bit about how many episodes you have so far?
Absolutely. So we began, this is funny. So I've been doing YouTube videos for, it's got to be 5 years or so now, a long time ago. If you want to laugh at me, go, if I was going to be perfectly honest, go back to some of my original episodes. They're hilarious. Like I sucked on camera, just super embarrassing. I remember one of the first videos I shot, I was sitting in a rental property that I had, and the fridge wasn't plugged in. And you know, like you don't plug the fridge in, you got to make sure something keeps it wedged open.
Yeah.
So I had this like really bright green cloth wedged in the fridge, and it was a white fridge, really ugly. And that was my background. That was some of the first videos I did. So
Yeah.
so all the years we went along, it was for a while they're really heavy into updates on the market, and then I kind of went to more of I'm going to batch content. I'm going to do like 5-6 weeks ahead. Started going that route. Realized that there was a pullback in some of my audience. That you know what, I got to get more active. I got to be getting this content out quicker and more timely for the audience that I speak to the best. So all of that kind of happened last February. I have a virtual assistant that actually encouraged me to start the podcast. So I said, you know what, let's launch some of the video episodes on podcasts. And then as COVID started happening, I was thinking, you know what if I was to record an episode every day for the next month on podcast? And I've never podcasted before. So I bought myself a nice little Yeti mic, the same one I'm using today, and just started recording, just audio only, no video. And over time, started getting some traction, did really well. And a couple of months in, I thought, you know what, let's go back to the video, incorporate the video. And so now I've kind of been able to merge the two. So since starting in February for podcasting, I think we're almost 230 episodes at the time we're recording this. So I don't
Nice.
know the average, but over the first 12 months, I think we're averaging about 17 episodes a month.
Hmm.
So we're putting out a ton of content between guest interviews, but mostly market updates, 2 to 3 episodes per week, just talking about what the market's talking about as an investor and as a broker. I need to research it myself, so it keeps me hot and I enjoy it. And we've just kind of been gotten a bit of a flying pattern here, and we're just kind of putting out less episodes but more consistently and the same type of content, and
Cool.
I'm enjoying it.
Is it just yourself, or do you have a co-host or something like that?
Just me, man.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
no pretty faces on these episodes. Other than
Okay.
the guests, right? Like we interview guests, and that's a chance to have a different voice. To be honest with you, though, the majority of our audience prefer to listen to me ramble. I find my episodes are in many cases more than double the downloads of guests, just
Nice.
because the reason they're following at least my channel is to get that update on the market.
Yeah.
So that's where they get it.
Well, what are your thoughts on having a co-host? Like, just in general, what do you think? Do you think you would be further ahead if you had one, or what are your thoughts?
Probably not. Probably
No.
not. You know why? I write the content. It takes me 3 to 4 hours to create it. I mean, you could outsource. There's a lot of things you can outsource, and I've been asked like, what do I do? Like, what's your job? For me, it's a content creator. Like, I create content. If you added a co-host, I do believe I could find someone with similar energy. I think that's possible. I think there's people more than capable of doing it, but the dynamic of laughing at myself, like I specifically take 30 minutes on each episode to put humor into the episode.
Hmm.
And mostly it ends up looking very embarrassing, but that personality that I have, I find, I don't know. I don't think a co-host would work.
Right.
To
Okay.
answer
You
your
know, that's
question.
fair. That's fair. Well, it seems like you're doing pretty well and you're enjoying it. So, what tips do you have for the audience here, the people that are listening, if they're interested in either starting a podcast or they want to grow their audience? What are 3 tips that you could share with them?
A podcast specifically, or you know what? Let's go outside of podcast, because I have seen out of podcast. Podcast is my thing. I think it's. I don't know why. To be honest with you, I don't think my voice is anything unique. It's just I don't know. For whatever reason, podcast has worked. But I know many other people who have gotten into creative, even in YouTube, that have far outshot the number of subscribers that I have in the last year. And really, what a lot of them have done is they've taken the opportunity, which is what I did with podcasting, by the way. So maybe this is tip number one: is you have to seize the opportunity. There's a lot of people I found this time last year. Now, keep in mind, I started my podcast in February. COVID and closure started in March. So I got a bit lucky in that sense. But as soon as March hit is when we doubled down on the amount of content. So I think when other people are pulling back, that's a really good opportunity, a good sign for you to really double down. There's a few other social platforms people can be doing. Like people can be looking at Clubhouse, TikTok. There's so many platforms. LinkedIn, man. I'm barely on LinkedIn, and I know there's a massive opportunity in LinkedIn right now.
Mhm.
Some of these I think are, so I would say look for those opportunities where other people are pulling away. If you look at large businesses, you notice that the ones that have taken off have done so in down cycles or times where everyone else is running in fear. And I think that that's the case when it comes to creating content. I think one of the things that people kind of grab onto, at least as it relates to my content from some of the feedback, is I love it. Like I actually really enjoy making content. I love chatting with folks, and I love my mouth moving.
Yeah.
You know, and I love real estate. I love talking about the Toronto real estate market. Whether I got paid for this or not, I'm not making money on podcasts. The big reason I do it is because I want to know. Yes, it helps my career too, but even if I wasn't licensed, I mean, there's majority of my audience don't have licenses, and these are people that are just passionate and love the industry. So I think that that's super important. And then I guess it would be, I'd be shortchanging to not say you gotta work hard. You really do.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm the hardest working person. I know it's very easy for people to brag and say I'm the hardest working guy. I think I'm just straight up. Like if you want to know how many hours I'm putting in, recently I've been doing actually one episode per week personally and one guest episode. Guests tend to be quicker. Personally, I'm putting in 3 to 4 hours, and then recording takes, call it 40 minutes plus giving it to my assistant to upload. So all in, it's taking me about 5 hours a week for
Mhm.
uploading. If I were to do it twice, it'd be 10 hours a week. I don't think that that takes a machine to do 10 hours of work. What people are seeing though is, oh my God, look at that backdrop, look at that audio, look at the setup, you know, look at the, I don't know, whatever. All of those things have come from, again, 200 episodes in a year. And I haven't checked my YouTube, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm over 400 or 500 uploads since I started. And a lot of it is just practice.
Mhm.
No, nobody cares about the quality content. In fact, I had someone recently on one of my old videos, it was from years ago, compliment my backdrop. It was literally me in an office, and they're like, "Oh, nice backdrop." Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, it's interesting because I complimented you on your backdrop now, just before we
yeah,
got started. It's, I like the way you have that set up. So, if we were to recap what you just said, so I think one of the main points that I got from you is just to seize the opportunity and double down on content. So when others are pulling away out of fear for whatever reason, you just double down, put out more content, focus on putting good things out there, and things will happen for you.
yes, absolutely. There's
Yeah.
a shortage of content. There's a
Yeah.
shortage of real estate listings, lots of money. There's a lots of listeners and a shortage of content. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you set goals for your podcast in terms of what you'd like to achieve from it? Do you like maybe you tie up a monetary goal or something of that nature to it?
No, I really don't. To be perfectly honest, I mean, when I started, the reason that I started was just to see how it goes.
Hmm.
I mean, it's really funny when you see, if you just take a step, you're moving forward. Not to say don't set goals. I do set goals. Like I think I would be lying to say I don't set goals. My goal right now is how many episodes am I doing? I'm committed certain days of the week, a guest each week. These are some of the commitments and goals that I have. But I don't know if I would attribute my success, at least on podcasting, to goals. I think it's just the consistency.
Hmm.
If and consistency can be a goal, right? Staying power is a huge, it's a huge force. So if you're doing this for even 2 months, I mean, we know, look at each year at the beginning of the year, everyone's like, you know what, I'm going to do such and such a goal. 2 months in, 90% of them have quit, probably more than that.
Yeah.
So the ones that continue, the following year when you're restarting, they're also setting new goals, but they're now a year ahead, and everyone's like, holy smokes, like they're killing it. Not really. They just didn't stop when you did.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. You gotta keep doing what you're doing, keep putting out content, and I mean, you're gonna figure it out at the end of the day what you want to get out of it, even if you don't know right away. So I see what you're saying there. I wanted to move on to point number two, which is the market trends.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? I know you work with investors, so I'm not sure which areas you focus on specifically, but what are you seeing in the market, and where do you think things are headed?
Yeah. So as it relates to the podcast, I'd say my skill set is as it relates to Toronto specifically. What does that mean necessarily the market in Toronto? No, I just, most of the media and attention I found as I started is centered around Toronto. So we go outside, we talk about Ontario. I mean, we talk about Canada too, constantly. So as it relates to where do I spend most of my energy, to be honest with you, as someone who looks as investors, I don't say, I know many people specialize in one area. I'm not so concerned with that. To me, what's more important is relationships. So if I'm going to move into a specific market, I tether myself to people who are masters of that market. So in a way, I'm a little bit of a helicopter, I guess, as it relates to my portfolio and helping clients. If someone, like recently I had someone that was looking to sell out in Welland. I don't follow Welland all that well, but knowing what they were trying to achieve, when it comes to real estate transactions, I find the amount of information that's available. I don't know. I'm not much of a farmer, let's say. When you start in real estate, they say, you know what, farm, find 1,000 doors, find 10,000 doors, whatever, and just focus your efforts on that one area. I've never done that. I've always been, you know what, I would rather have a warmer relationship with people. I would rather connect with people, whether that's through social, whether that's through podcasts or whatever. The relationships and getting into those markets is so much more powerful. Like I know who I'm going to call if I have a question about what's going on in Welland. I know where online I can find information that I need that's relevant to an investor in that market. So the actual space itself, I'm not like a local person looking for that opportunity on this set of streets, looking to jump on that opportunity. What I'm looking for is more general, I guess more of a macro perspective, which comes through in a lot of the stats that I give, right? I'm not looking at like, what is this one street? One developer has this big announcement. I don't care. I'm not worried about that. I'm looking at from a bigger perspective. Are people moving in? Are they moving out? What areas have the tightest supply? These are some of the things. And from that, I adjust the investment strategy and I'll kind of point people in the right direction.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So what are you seeing? Like, what do you think is going to happen? I know, well, right now we're shooting this in April 2021. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen with the market? And what are you starting to see a shift at all in the market?
Yeah, I've been seeing a shift in the market for a while. I mean, there's always a shift. I think you can lead it by at least a month or two. The media tends to be about a month or two behind. So I don't know when we're uploading this, but at this point in time, I am noticing a couple changes. One, we've already seen the first shift that the government, that we've seen from CMHC, their increase to stress test. That's sign number one, in my opinion, a leading indicator of further adjustments that are going to come. In fact, today, we would actually, this week, we're going to be seeing, it might actually be today, we were going to see an announcement, the federal budget. It's coming out in the next week or so. Whenever that's released, I anticipate there's probably going to be something in there as well. So I think you're going to start to see a bit of dominoes come down with intervention because there's been enough of an outcry of overheating. Even people who have said there's been no overheating are starting to say, including major banks, they're starting to say we're seeing overheating. At the same time, I'm seeing a trend where we're actually starting to get a little bit of leveling out in the market, a little bit. I don't know if it's enough to slow everything to a halt or to keep prices as they are. But when you get detached in Toronto over 1.5 million, that tells me people at some point, people are going to say enough is enough. I'm not buying that product anymore. And I think we're starting to see that because we're seeing active listings rising, not just downtown, but in suburban markets too. People aren't showing up for multiple offers in the same way they have before. I kind of hope that trend continues, but I hope that the two of them don't happen simultaneously because that's when you're going to start to have a problem, right? If our market has dealt with itself, which I believe markets do that, but then you also have this intervention taking place that overextends beyond what's necessary, that's when you have yourself a problem. Mm-hmm. So I think that those are the things right now that I'm watching for the closest as it relates to the market. And obviously, whether the city is going to outperform or the outskirt communities, they all kind of work a little bit differently too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's nobody knows what's going to happen. I can say that from my end, we're seeing things are, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain how they are. Like some properties are still getting a lot of attention and they're selling for substantially over asking, but I think there is an increase in supply as well. Yeah. And we are seeing that some properties now, they're not getting as many showings and they're not getting the multiple offers. But I think a lot of times when that's happening, they're just relisting it at a higher price and still getting very close to what they're asking. So I think right now, I mean, if you're selling a property, it's good to just be patient and you'll eventually get what you want, but it might not be as quickly as we would have had maybe 2-3 months ago.
Yeah. And just to dive a little more in there too, we are definitely in a seller's market. I mean, there's no question we're in a seller's market. We're deep entrenched in one. But there is also these minor shifts that do happen in a normal market where though you're in a seller's market, if there's all of a sudden influx influx of new listings, you can have a temporary buyer's market take place. I've seen that myself. It sounds like you're maybe seeing that too in some ways, where there's kind of an influx and it's like, wait a minute. And all of a sudden buyers get a little picky, get one or two sellers, they flinch. And all of a sudden it seems to change things kind of in a tighter bubble. In the bigger perspective, I would agree with you. Not to say don't constantly expect that in 6 months from now, my prices are going to be 20% higher. I think that's unrealistic. But to say that the value that you've already obtained is gone, I don't think that we've reached that point yet. And I don't think that's going to happen for a while. I think the main thing is not so much that we need to see prices come down, but we need to see some stability in prices. We can't have this reaction to low interest rates and it really is FOMO. I mean, people are they're freaking out.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing to keep in mind is the speed at which properties are selling. We've had this idea that, you know, a home should be selling in 3-4 days, which is not realistic. And I think people sometimes might panic a little bit if, I'm speaking like from a seller's perspective, they might panic a little bit if their property's on the market for 25 days, but that's normal, right? Like that's what's supposed to happen. 3 to 4 days isn't normal. So it's just something to keep in mind, just to be patient. And if you're on the buying end, if you're like an investor looking to buy, I would always recommend, I mean, personally, what I like to do is look for those properties where there isn't a lot of competition, where they might have been on the market for a little while and you can try to find an opportunity that way.
Yeah. Or off market, right? Like I know you're that kind of guy too. So depending on the approach, depending if it's a place you're going to live, I mean, you can get very creative. You just need to, again, it comes down to relationships and having those contacts in place. And obviously you got to tread carefully, make sure you have the right advice if you're going to go wholesale or one of those. But there's a lot of opportunities still out there. I mean, when we're looking for deals, people roll their eyes, but I'm looking for 20% off of fair market value. If it's not there, or tremendous lift. If those two things don't exist, then we're probably not even going to bat an eye at it. So, but everyone's different, because I've had questions where I had a friend of mine recently, their mom was buying a condo right downtown, and they're saying, hey, it's listed for, because condos are super heat right now. So you say, okay, we want to buy it. It's listed at 600 or whatever. We're thinking we're going to offer over 7. And they asked me, as someone who's familiar with the market, what do you suggest? I said, I don't know. Are you getting a mortgage? No. So they're buying this in cash. Okay. I'm like, well, how much, and this, they're going to move into it. I'm like, how much is it worth to you? And they said, I don't know. Like, so whatever that is, that's the value of that condo, because at the end of the day, you're buying it to live there. Like, you're not buying that as an investment. I think there's this real confusion between, like, just because you have real estate, you own the house you live in, doesn't make that an investment. That just means you, in my opinion, you're ahead, right? You're taking advantage of the growth. You're taking inflation is all kind of adding to this appreciating value. But for you to own your house puts you on a level playing field with everybody else. If you want to truly invest, you got to go outside the primary resident, in my opinion, to do that. So when it comes to buying your house, I wouldn't overthink it. When I bought the house I'm sitting in today, I overpaid $10,000, and I knew I did because I wanted that house. And the bank didn't even appraise it at what I paid. And as someone who is picky with purchasing properties, I mean, I hope that doesn't come as a surprise. It's because this is the house my wife wants. This is where I see myself raising my babies. $10,000. Now you look back and I look like a genius because at least I got in the market. But at the time, it would appear to be crazy. But it's because it's my house. What my babies get, want my babies get. And that's
exactly. For sure. Let's move on to point number 3. So raising capital. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe your procedures for that, and just some tips on that as well?
Yeah. So when I first started raising capital, I'd say, so I started getting so to kind of talk about my investment path a little bit, to kind of give some context. Up until, I guess, 6 months ago, so call it September, October of 2020, I had no intention of partnering. In fact, I've been on large podcasts just kind of laughing and saying, I don't believe in partnering. I don't see that as any value. I like to kind of have everything or nothing. And that's been a lot of my attitude for the last several years in dealing with residential. Now I've gotten to a point in November, I realized I want to get into multifamily, and I realized the power of being able to partner through joint ventures and all that. So that began my journey. Although I already had an audience through podcasting, through YouTube, and just friends, and whether that's through people I've helped in real estate, all that. I had that as a resource, but never really tapped into it. Between November and December, just from reaching out to people, from mentioning it on my podcast, from just keeping track, like kind of creating a database. These are your customers. The investors are your customers, and applying a lot of the same business models that I use in my real estate game to the investors for this side. We had raised, man, it was probably over 6-7 million, like that quickly. Now, nobody had like given me any deposits or anything. This was just like, yeah, we want to invest with you. And this is kind of what we're looking for. And I had that. And I had actually begun working with a couple partners instead. Now I'm back to working with more investors, and I'm kind of really trying to fine tune that. But all that to answer your question, when it comes to raising capital, what I found when I first started was a lot of people were fence sitting, and they're saying, you know what, how many of these have you done? And because they're correctly concerned about their money. I mean, you're investing in what I'm doing, you're investing in me and the systems that I use. So the podcast allowed me to have quicker credibility, but I believe that credibility can be built, whether that's through doing it on your own or JVing with someone else, and kind of get your feet wet and build. I mean, even the banks, when you're getting financing, they want to see what is that track record. So you got to kind of build that. As that goes, it gets far easier. A lot like as a realtor, right? Like your first year or two. I mean, I was 23, 24 years old with a real estate license. I mean, goodness, you're good luck. Like good luck. Age plus you're just getting started. Come on. So but over the years, people are like, shoot, he's really damn good. You know, you get, whether that's through word of mouth, fine. I think that there's more than word of mouth. I think if you're able to show people your successes, you're able to communicate, this is a win that I have. You don't have to wait for word of mouth. Word of mouth happens too. It happens organically, but I do believe you can be a little more forward. Just share your wins, share your successes. Instagram stories, just share what is going on. So these and constant communication as a database, you need to be in touch with these people, reaching out to them individually and saying, hey, just wanted to fill you in on something I'm doing. Again, I know you're not looking for the next 6 months, really excited, until eventually you get to a point where you have to get picky. And I also found that on the real estate side, like at some point you have to be picky, because first of all, I don't want to work with everybody. I've realized that there are bad partners out there. And second, like once you've realized you've got the money, for me, I found a hard part now is the deal. And I see many, many deals, but finding a really good deal is challenging. So I want to know that I have an investor ready. So when that deal comes up, we can jump on it. And so I guess to bring it all back, I think people are watching. Be somebody that is out there sharing. A lot of people are very private in the investment community, especially the hide. And I think you need to be a little more open if you want to attract people to you. I'm not one who likes to go and grab people. I like people to gravitate, and they do. I mean, people gravitate to success. It's just a reality. So
Yeah. So what I heard you say through that is basically it's important to build relationships, to stay in touch with people, to put out content. So whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is that you choose to do, constantly be top of mind with people, and basically that builds trust. And when you have trust, you're able to raise capital that way.
you nailed it. You
Yeah.
summarized it better than I did. You're right. All of those things are true.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. So before we move on to the next section, is there anything else you want to add? Maybe anything we haven't covered?
No, not really. I mean, I'm happy to go in any direction. I don't think there's anything specific. I know. Okay, here's one, because I do get I get a lot of people send me messages. First of all, leave us a review, man. Leave this guy a review. The Well-Being Podcast is putting out so much effort for you guys, and I would encourage you guys to support the channel. So I guess that's one thing. But I get a lot of messages from people that say, hey, like they look at me, I'll talk to them for a few minutes and they're like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Okay, so I didn't even know you knew who I was, but there's a lot of fear around, like, that's Bradley. Like, whoa, like I can't do what he's doing, and like he's untouchable. And then I sit back and I just think, like, you're literally talking to me. Like, I'm right here. I'm a person just like you. So don't feel like, yes, you've heard people on my podcast and other podcasts that are like superstars. They're all, the only reason we're able to get them as guests is because they're people that can be reached, right? And I do believe that if you take the time to reach out to people and build those relationships, you don't have to have a large YouTube following or a big following. You really don't. We're available. We're here to support you. So I think getting through that, I think that's an opportunity for you to break through a little bit and be able to realize, like, we're all just people. And most of us, I would say the majority, are doing it because we genuinely love it. And we want to help people, not to build wealth. I think a lot of people are freaked out by investors. Oh, you're hogging all the houses. Oh, you're screwing renters. I'm getting a lot of comments like that recently. The reason that I'm doing it, maybe I can only speak for myself, is I love it. Like, these are the rules of the game. I'm playing by the rules of the game. You don't like the rules, change it. Don't hate the player.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone can get into it. And I encourage anyone to just don't be afraid of that. Just step into that and kind of work through it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So we cover a lot of ground here. I wanted to go on to the random 5, which is 5 random questions. And you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. First answer that comes to mind. So number 1, if you were suddenly transported to another planet, how would you assess the situation?
How would I assess the situation? Well, if I'm alive, that's a good thing. So my assessment would be, this is maybe doable.
Yeah.
And I would begin to colonize, I guess. You just take it one day at a time. Where's my water? Where's my food? You got to go back to basics, right? I mean, take a millionaire out of his $1 million corporation and he's going to look for a part-time job. I mean, I think that's the same. That's how I would apply it. I just live, stay alive, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Number 2, would you rather have 10 hobbies or 1 passion?
1 passion. I don't have 10 hobbies. I got 1 passion. So I'm going to go with that one.
There you go. Easy answer. Number 3, what's the funniest movie you've ever seen?
Oh boy. Funniest movie I've ever seen? Oh, you couldn't just give me like any movie, right? It had to be like funny.
Funny movie. That's the question. I don't make these up.
I don't know. I actually don't have an answer for that.
Okay, that's fine. We could just skip it. If you think of something,
you're gonna have to give me a minute. We'll circle back. Let's circle back on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Number 4, what's the smartest thing you've ever done?
Smartest thing I've ever done. Married my wife.
Yeah. You know what? When I read that question, I figured that was going to be the answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the right call.
Yeah. That's an easy one. Number 5, what's your favorite pizza topping?
Okay. Pepperoni, pineapple, and bacon. And I think the difference maker on it is the pineapple.
Yeah. Pepperoni, pineapple, bacon. I don't think I've ever had that.
That's a controversial one. And
Yeah.
to go back to answer your funniest movies, I think Bridesmaids, though I know that's kind of a romantic comedy, those are the type of funny movies that I watch because I get, again, watch it with my wife. But
Yeah.
I thought that movie was pretty funny. I like those kind of, I like those. I like the smart humor. I don't know if Bridesmaid would be considered smart humor, but I like that movie. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's it. So how do people reach you and what services do you provide?
Well, you can find me on my podcast. That's an easy jump from this show. It's called Toronto's #1 Real Estate Podcast. Or if you want to watch me talk on YouTube, you can find us at Watson Estates. And people can reach me just generally. Again, not bringing it to business in any way. If you guys just want to connect with me, feel free. You can follow me on Instagram. The handle is at Watson Estates. And if someone wants to invest, reach out. I mean, we look for larger investors. We're looking for accredited investors to get involved, but we're happy to support you. And we're looking just to kind of also, actually, this is another way to mention too. If you don't want to talk to me specifically, but you want access to our off-market deals, we do send those too, and they can find that. I'll send that to you as well. We can add that as a link. You can get on the list. We got over 450 investors there, and we share off-market, discounted properties, and apartment deals, so they can get there as well.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing your story, Bradley. It was great to have you on, and I wish you all the best.
Beautiful. Thank you.
As always, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the content. And if you did, I ask you to share this with a friend, with a family member, somebody who might benefit. And it's always appreciated if you can leave us a review, especially if you're listening to it on the Apple Podcasts app, or if you're on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, comment, and your support is always appreciated. Thank you very much.